Welcome to the Blood Moon Archives, home to real-life encounters of things that go bump in the night. These aren't just stories. These are true horrors that will haunt you long after the screen fades to black. So lock your doors, close the curtains, and keep those lights on. Let's get into it. The Room Behind the Door. By donation. Location: Boston, Massachusetts. When I bought the house, everyone told me I was brave. Brave for taking on something so old, so run down. Brave for moving in alone. I didn't really see it that way. I'd always loved old homes, the kind with creaky floors and high ceilings and fireplaces in places that didn't need them. There's something honest about a house that stood longer than you've been alive. It feels like it's been waiting for you. The house was Victorian, 3 stories tall, perched just a little too close to the edge of a hill that overlooked the back end of town. It had a wraparound porch and chipped gray-blue paint, and overgrown bushes that had long since lost their shape. A widow's walk on the roof, too, though the railing was mostly rust. I moved in late October, when the leaves were already crisp on the ground, and the light had that soft, tired quality in the afternoons. It smelled like dust and wood polish inside, even though no one had lived there in years. The real estate agent didn't say much about the previous owners, only that the property had been in probate a long time, and finally cleared for sale. I didn't press it. I liked that it had a history. I liked that it needed me. Everything about the house felt stuck in time, but not in a spooky way. Just old. I spent the first few weeks painting, replacing fixtures, and cleaning out forgotten closets. There were signs of people who'd been there before. A few rusted tools in the basement. A faded name etched into the wooden windowsill upstairs. H. Dunn, 1963. But then there was the door. At the end of the second-floor hallway, just past the linen closet, was a small door. It didn't match the others. Where the rest were smooth and painted white, this one was darker, older, with a keyhole shaped like a tiny tear. It was sealed shut. Not just locked, but actually sealed. No knob, no handle. Just a keyhole, and a faint ring of waxy residue around the frame. I assumed it was a storage space, or an old closet someone had stopped using. I ignored it for a while. But the thing is, when you live alone, you notice things. You notice the way the house settles. You notice where the drafts come from. You notice the weird temperature shift in certain corners. That door, that end of the hallway, was always cold. Even when the radiator was on full blast, that stretch of floor stayed cooler, like the heat curved around it. One afternoon, I decided to deal with it. I called a locksmith. He was older, maybe in his 70s, and took one look at the lock before crouching down without a word. He poked at it with his tools for a while before sitting back on his heels and frowning. He told me the lock wasn't modern, not even close. It was hand-forged, custom-made, probably in the early 1900s or earlier. He said he'd only seen a few like it in his career, and that whoever made it hadn't wanted it opened easily. He couldn't pick it. Said I'd need a key, or we'd have to remove the entire mechanism from the door. I didn't have a key. The agent hadn't given me one, and the lawyer who finalized the probate sale didn't mention any extra keys. So I told the locksmith to do what he had to do. It took a while, and he was surprisingly quiet while he worked. When he finally pulled the lock free, he looked at me for a long second before handing me the metal casing. It was heavy and cold in my hand, darker than I expected. Then I opened the door, and I'm still not sure how to explain what was on the other side. It was a bedroom, a child's bedroom. Small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. Pale green wallpaper with a soft pattern of vines and birds. A white wooden bed with a curved headboard. A shelf of books, cloth bound, faded at the edges. A dollhouse, a rocking chair. A little desk tucked under the window, with a pencil still resting in a half-used notebook. But no dust. No cobwebs. Nothing disturbed. Everything was clean, as if someone had just stepped out. The bed was made neatly. The chair pushed in. The curtains drawn slightly open. It was like walking into a memory that hadn't aged. Like the room had been waiting behind that door, untouched by time. I stood there for a long while, not moving, not breathing much. Eventually, I stepped inside. The air was strange, not musty, like you'd expect in a sealed space. It was cool, neutral, not warm, not cold, just still. I touched the desk. The surface was smooth, not polished, just worn from use. There were small indents in the wood, like someone had spent a lot of time writing there. The notebook was open to a page with half-finished math problems in a looping hand. I ran my finger across the paper. It didn't crumble or yellow. It felt new. The books on the shelf were classic children's titles. The Secret Garden, Little Women, Anne of Green Gables. All of them had a name written on the inside cover. Clara Dunn. That's when I remembered the name carved into the windowsill in the other room. H. Dunn. Maybe a sibling. I searched the rest of the room, looking for anything that might give me a clue, a date, a photo, anything. But there was nothing else personal. Just toys, books, clothes neatly folded in a small chest at the foot of the bed. No photographs, no calendars. Nothing to tell me who Clara was, or when she'd last been there. After that, I checked county records. I looked up the address, combed through the history of the property. There were names, past owners, deaths, estate transfers, but no mention of a Clara Dunn. No birth certificate, no school enrollment, no record of a child living at that house, ever. I thought maybe she had died young. Maybe the room was sealed because of grief or superstition. But even then, there should have been something. I even called the lawyer again. He checked everything he had. Still nothing. Weeks went by. I left the room alone. I didn't change anything, didn't touch anything else. I just closed the door again, though I didn't lock it. And every so often, I'd open it, just to look, just to make sure it was still real. It always was. Same bed, same chair, same desk with the pencil and notebook, same strange feeling in the air, like the room wasn't really part of the house. Sometimes, I'd come home and swear the curtains were more open than I remembered, or that the dollhouse door had been shut the last time I looked. I kept telling myself it was just my memory playing tricks, that it was just in my head. But last week, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. The pencil on the desk, it had moved. It was turned sideways. And the notebook was open to a different page. Still math problems. Still that same looping handwriting. But now, one of the answers was underlined. Twice. I didn't touch it. I closed the door again. Gently. Respectfully. And now, every time I walk past that end of the hallway, I feel it. That stillness. Like a breath held in a long, long time. Like something behind the door knows I saw it. I haven't told anyone. Not really. I don't think anyone would believe me anyway. I just keep living here. Quietly. Carefully. And I don't lock the door. Not anymore. Because maybe it's not mine to lock. Well, you've heard the truth. But remember, not every story ends when the video does. Some stories follow you home, into the dark corners of your mind. If you've made it this far, you might just be brave enough to face what's next. If you want to hear more of these terrifying tales, and perhaps awaken something, you shouldn't. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. You'll want to know when the next nightmare arrives. But be careful. Once you step into the darkness, it's not always easy to find your way out.